Ever feel like you're doing this teaching thing alone? You don't have to be. Shared teaching is all about sharing the workload through the power of collaboration and teamwork. Together, we'll walk through all the difficult parts of teaching and learn how to streamline our processes, fine-tune our time management, and develop a more manageable workload. If that sounds like a dream come true to you, then welcome to the Shared Teaching Podcast. Let's share in the teaching to make those dreams a reality. Now here's today's Shared Teaching. Welcome back to the Shared Teaching Podcast. I'm your host, Susan, creator and founder behind Shared Teaching. And today you are listening to episode 122, where we're talking about how to be more effective at writing instruction. Now, effective writing instruction begins with you. Even without any writing training for your teaching career, it's possible to improve and become a great writing teacher. I truly believe that. So let's dive into some practical tips for effective writing instruction that's going to make your classroom buzz with creativity and learning. So the first topic we're going to talk about is, why does daily writing matter? And you need to make sure your students are writing daily. Daily writing is going to help your students develop fluency, build stamina, and see writing as a natural part of their day. When students write every day, they get more comfortable with expressing their thoughts and ideas on paper, and that's exactly what we want. So in order to implement it, you want to make sure you set aside a specific time each day dedicated solely to writing, a little writing block. I do have another podcast episode all about this. It's called Planning Your Writing Workshop Schedule, even if you only have 30 minutes, where I give you some really good tips on how to incorporate writing into your classroom every day. And that's going to be episode 52. Of course, all of these are going to be linkable in the show notes if you just click on them. Please don't do it while you're driving, but when you have some extra time, they're there for you to listen. So you want to set aside a specific time. Even 10 to 15 minutes can make a really significant difference with younger students, but I do recommend trying to have at least a 30-minute writing block. This way you have your 5 to 10-minute mini lesson, and then at least 20 minutes for the students to just write and practice what you're implementing. So you're going to make sure that your mini lesson is focused on one writing skill, and then you're going to release them to practice that skill. I've talked before about mini lessons, so I'm not going to mention again here, but you do want to listen to episode 52. And I think a minute ago I said the wrong episode. Episode 50 is Planning Your Writing Workshop. Okay, so 50 for Planning Your Writing Workshop, 52 for Planning Your Writing Mini Lessons. Okay, the next thing you're going to want to do to be an effective writing instructor is to slow down your instruction. It's really tempting to rush through lessons to cover more ground, but slowing down your instruction can actually lead to deeper understanding and better writing skills in your students. So writing is actually one of the places you usually actually have the time to slow down, because you're not adhering to a crazy pacing guide, most of us, for your curriculum for writing, because you don't really have a curriculum for writing. So you actually can benefit from slowing down. Now, when you slow down, you give students the time they need to absorb new concepts and practice new skills. This approach reduces anxiety and builds confidence, as students will feel more in control of their learning. Now, tips for slowing down: you're going to break it down. You're going to introduce new writing skills in small, manageable steps. These are your mini lessons. And instead of teaching a whole lesson on sentence structure, maybe you're going to focus on one piece of sentence structure, like using capital letters at the beginning of sentences. And then the next time you have a lesson, you're going to move on to the next part of sentence structure, maybe spacing between words. But you want to make sure it's just that one mini focus. Repetition is key. You're going to want to revisit concepts regularly, right? Just like in math and reading where we have spiral review, you're going to want to review, repeat, not just one time I'm done. Why don't they have capital letters yet? Well, maybe you only taught them one day. You need to continue to reinforce that. So maybe the next lesson is on spacing, but you want to remind them, hey, remember we talked about capital letters? Make sure we still use our capital letters. And now we're going to do spacing. So you just kind of build on it. It's going to really help students learn and cement these skills in their minds. Okay, and of course, practice is key. Practice, practice, practice. You're going to give students plenty of opportunities to practice each new skill before moving on to the next. Okay, another tip for being effective writing. Instructors are to teach the writing process. You're going to help students understand the writing process is crucial for developing their writing abilities. Of course, you're not going to tell them that, but you're going to explain what the writing process is, and it includes 5 steps. For me, I use planning, writing, revising, editing, and publishing in that order. Okay, so planning is the brainstorming phase. This is where you're encouraging students to jot down their ideas, draw pictures, maybe make lists of what they want to write about. And I often provide students with a graphic organizer to help with planning, and I stick with one genre at a time. So we always start with our narrative writing, and so we're talking about us and our world, and that is going to be in some kind of graphic organizer and brainstorming. Okay, next is writing. Students are going to put their ideas onto the paper in sentences and eventually paragraphs. You're going to remind them it's a first draft. I don't really call it first draft, but you're going to just tell them like, hey, it's writing. It doesn't have to be perfect. We make it better when we publish, revise, edit. Okay. So next is revising. You're going to tell students to look at their work, fresh eyes, and make sure to make changes to improve their writing. So I have a whole process of this that is in my opinion writing unit that is out on TPT now. I also have narrative and expository coming. I'm hoping by the end of summer that will be up in my store as well. But I do go through the same steps for all of my units for my revision and editing publishing processes. Okay, so we're going to look at adding more details, maybe reordering sentences, choosing better words, all those kinds of fun things that make our writing better. Next step you're going to teach is editing. So editing is when you're focusing on correcting the grammar, the spelling, and punctuation errors, so the quote-unquote mistakes. I love to use peer editing, but I don't start that until at least halfway through the school year. Usually it's just the student edits it, then they come to me and I look it over after they've edited it, and we kind of go through a few things together. So editing can take a lot of time to get through your class. Just keep that in mind when you're planning out lessons, that you're going to need a couple of days during the editing process and figuring out what the students are going to be doing while they're waiting for you to look over their work. Okay, last is publishing. I do not do this step for every single writing assignment, but when we do, publishing is special. We're going to plan somehow to show off student work and give them a chance to feel proud of their writing. If you want more information on editing and revising teaching, you can look at episode number 45, where I talk about editing and revising teaching methods. Again, that will be linked in the show notes. All right. Last but not least is we want to model writing. Effective writing teachers model writing for students. Modeling is a powerful, powerful tool. When students see their teacher actively engaging in the writing process, they understand that writing is a skill that even adults work on. Why it works is seeing a real person write in real time makes the abstract process of writing concrete and accessible. You're going to explain what you're thinking. You're going to think aloud as you're writing for students, and it shows them that writing involves that thinking. It involves making mistakes. Don't be afraid to misspell words when you're modeling writing, because you're going to need those misspelled words when you go back and revise and edit, right? Very important. Plus, if you're teaching first and second grade, your students don't know all the spelling of all the words yet, right? So spell things like they spell things. Sound them out phonetically. Miss silent E. Do all those kind of things. And if someone points it out, be like, oh, it's okay, we'll fix it later. Just like they're going to do in their actual writing. Okay. And so all of these things are normal parts of the process, and you want students to see that. It's kind of like opening up your brain and talking through the process. Okay, so you want to think aloud. You want to verbally explain your thinking process. You're going to explain why you're choosing these words, how you're structuring your sentences, what you're thinking about when you revise. But remember, you want to stick with whatever your mini lesson is. So you're not going to do all those things if you're modeling a writing piece. You're just going to think aloud and hone in on what your focus is for that day. Okay? Shared writing. I love doing shared writing, especially with younger students. And this is where you write a piece together as a class. I know second grade even has this as a standard of working on reports together. So a collaborative effort is going to help students see how ideas can be developed and refined with input from others. Gives them a chance to learn how to work alongside others, right? So make small groups even. Do different groups have different parts of the assignment? Shared writing is just a really good thing to use. All right, and of course, mentor texts. I love using mentor texts. These show examples of good writing. It's kind of like your anchor for your exemplar for what you're wanting students to achieve. And believe it or not, they can do it. Just have a little faith in them. You'll be really surprised how far you can push them. You're going to read these texts together, discuss what makes them effective. You don't have to read the entire book, just the part where you're talking about whatever it is you're trying to showcase. So let's say you're doing introduction. Just read the first page of the book and talk about the introduction. If you read the entire book and then be like, hey, well, what was the introduction? You're going to lose students. So just read the part of the book that you want to showcase. If it's something about descriptive writing, find a part, find a paragraph, find a few sentences where it's really good description writing. Robert Munch is an amazing author for this. I love using him when I'm talking about details in writing because he has tons of details in all of his stories. I love it. So use a mentor text, find a good text that has an exemplar of what you're trying to showcase to students. And then you're going to try to mimic some of these techniques in your own writing when you're modeling it for the students. Okay, so if you want more information about shared writing, you can check out episode 112, Shared Writing Within Writer's Workshop. And if you need help with mentor texts, I have episode 17, Choosing a Mentor Text for Reading and Writing. Okay, so real quick, we talked about why you should write daily with your students, how to actually do it, slow down your instruction, how to slow down your instruction, and the 5 parts of the writing process, and modeling writing for students. If you put all these things together, effective writing instruction for your first and second graders do not have to be complicated. By providing daily writing time, slowing down your instruction, teaching the writing process, and modeling writing for your students, you're going to create a creative classroom where young writers are going to thrive. Remember, the goal is to make writing an enjoyable and meaningful part of their lives. So you're going to grab those pencils and get to writing. If you want more writing help, you are welcome to sign up to learn about my new program, Writing Unpacked, where I help teachers make writing their favorite subject to teach. And I will have that link in the show notes. Bye for now. See you next week for an all-new Shared Teaching podcast episode. If you've loved this show, then join me in sharing the teaching,
hitting that subscribe button,
and leaving us a review on
iTunes,
so we can be found by more teachers like you who are ready to start sharing the workload. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Find new episodes each week on sharedteaching.com. Thanks for listening to the Shared Teaching Podcast.